Ben,
Jacob,
how are you doing?
good. How are you doing?
Baruch Hashem.
Baruch Hashem.
Except for the fact Chabad is trending on Twitter for all the wrong reasons.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, I saw that. Yeah, it is very sad to hear about those things.
Yeah.
Humans be humans.
Humans are in fact humans. This is true. Uh, Teenage boys are more human than most. Uh, and they do crazy, crazy things.
Mm-hmm.
And for some reason, teenage Jewish boys are just as much teenage boys as teenage Gentile boys.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Very similar.
yeah, maybe even more so, yes. um, okay. It's. Should I go or you want to go?
You can go for it. Are we in 45?
We are on 45. We are.
Eric Ma?
We are Perik Ma. Yes. Um, so, like, there are comments on some of the chapters from
Mm-hmm.
people back when people used to comment on web pages, and 45 and 46 are one of the few that actually have comments at the bottom. Like, so yeah, uh, whatever. Okay,
So we'll see what that means.
we will see what that means, and we're getting pretty close to the end of the first part of Tanya.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah.
Are we supposed to? Are we supposed to do a siyum on that?
Siyum on each part? No, but we could make a siyum when we finish the. I mean, frankly, we could make a siyum. I don't think you can say Kaddish though. And it would be pretty hard to get a minion to say Kaddish online. We would have to have 10 people in the same room.
Yeah.
Yeah, wouldn't work. Okay. עוד יש דרך ישר לפני איש לעסוק בתורה מצוות לשמן. So there's a direct path open to man to be involved in Torah and mitzvot for their own sakes. Let's see what this open path is. Al yedei מידתו של יעקב אבינו עליו השלום שהיא מידת הרחמים, through the attribute of our forefather Jacob, that is the attribute of mercy, right? So Rahamim, Tiferet, this is the third Svirah, sometimes referred to as the heart of the Svirot.
So, so it's sometimes referred to as beauty.
Yes.
So it's kind of confusing because it's beauty. It's, you said Rachamim and Yaakov, and Yaakov is also Emet.
Emet's truth, yes. So, so the idea is that you have the right pillar, you have the left pillar. Here, let's pull up the visuals. Ta-da! The Partsufim.
Mm-hmm.
And there are 10 Sefirot, and if you count them, you will actually see that there's 11 listed here.
Mm-hmm.
Why? Because there are 10 Sefirot, not 9, 10 Sefirot, not 10, not 11. So there are 11 listed because these are all the possible Sefirot, but any Partsuf really only shows one of those 5 middle Sefirot, actually. Mm-hmm. Usually, Keter is not shown, or Dat is not shown, or Malchut is not shown, but sometimes you will even get a Partsuf where Tiferet or Yesod are not shown.
Haven't encountered those yet.
Yeah, so Tiferet, beauty, is, so in a sense, it is a mixture of Gevura and Chesed. So Chesed is the right hand. Gevura is the left hand, and the right side is the masculine, the left side is the feminine, and the combination of the two is the middle path.
Mm-hmm.
So since chesed is loving kindness or charity, and gevura or din is justice, then mercy, rachamim, is a combination of both. um, and the aspect, and so we say chesed labra, titen chesed labraham, right? God gave kindness to Abraham, and and Yitzchak is considered pachad Yitzchak, right? God, he,
Severity or
or awe, right? And then Yaakov is kind of a culmination of the two together.
mm-hmm.
So that's I mean, we say the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, and the God of Jacob. And so in a sense, when we talk about Rachamim, we're talking about the middle pillar.
Yeah.
Okay?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So לעורר במחשבתו תחילה רחמים רבים לפני Hashem. To awaken in his mind first the great compassion before God, right? I mean, they're translating a lot of words because it's not quite clear what he's saying. This is accomplished by first arousing in his mind, i.e., before his performance of Torah and mitzvot, great compassion before God. Al nitzot elokut hamechaye nafsho asher yarad mimekoro chaye hachayim ein sof baruch hu. Right? To awaken this compassion that God should have on the holy divine spark, which was brought into the world to give life to him, right? So that's why, I mean, at the beginning of the prayers, we say, Elokai neshama shenatata b'tahorahi, right? My God, the soul that you have given me is pure, right?
So to raise compassion, they say, to raise compassion,
awaken
compassion for God. If I connect that with Rambam, that like know him through in his ways, so that's why Rambam also says, if you obviously can learn it through
well,
prayer,
I mean,
but also through when you see a mountain, when you view a mathematical equation, when you do those things, you have a certain compassion towards the improbability of
that's okay. So that's actually something very different, right?
Okay.
So you can think about the greatness of God. You can think about, and that is very much Maimonides' way, right? To think of the greatness of God. But here, this is much more, in fact, the opposite, more Nachmanides than Maimonides. This is the mystical path, not the rationalistic path, which is which is a path of more prayer, right, than Torah study. It's a path of saying, oh, dear God, right, you have created me, you, and to ask for God's compassion, ask for God. So we are trying to awaken in us, in ourselves, a compassion for God. But more than anything, we're trying to awaken in God a compassion for that divine spark which he has entrusted into our care.
Is this let's see if I can figure this. Is this more agentic than arenic?
I think you could say that. It is an appeal to the agentic god more than the arenic god. Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Okay. So, Hamemale kol almin v'sovev kol almin, right? God who is beyond all the worlds and within all the worlds. V'chula kameh kala chashev, and everything before him is as if it is not. V'nitlabesh b'mashka dechivra, right? That this holy spark of godliness has been clothed into this serpent's skin. I think this comes from the Zohar. Okay, yeah. Harachok me'or pnei hamelech betachlit haherchek. Right? So it has fallen from the greatest of heights, right? Because as we say, man the napach mitochet napach, he who breathed deeply, and that the soul of man, the divine soul of man, is chelak alakam imal, right? Is a piece of godliness itself, and it has gone through many constrictions through all of the worlds, from those that are the highest, the worlds of emanation, through creation, formation, and into action, until it has become enclosed in something as disgusting and lowly as a human being, right? Ki ha'olam hazeh hu tachlit haklipot hagasot chulu, because this world is the lowest of the coarse husks, so forth. Ubifrat kasheyizkor al kol ma'asav v'diburav u'machshavtov miyom heyoto asher lo tovim hema, and especially when a person considers all of the stupid things he's done and said and thought, Rahman al-Atzlan, from the moment he came into being, how unworthy they are. Umelech asur barhatim birhite mocha, right? A king who has been, they translated, fettered by the tresses. I would say a much better translation might be, who is held captive in chains, right? Berehite mocha, so this is in Aramaic, by the impetuous thoughts of the brain, right? So God, in a sense, is trapped, is chained down by our stupidity. Ki Yaakov chevel nachalato, because Jacob is the rope of his inheritance. Now, this verse, I mean, to understand this verse exactly, right, you have to go look it up in Deuteronomy, is it? It's in Deuteronomy 32, yeah.
The note here talks about why here
Okay,
it speaks about heaven.
Yeah, the word chevel, usually translated as lot, as in a tract of land, is here interpreted by its alternative meaning of rope. When a rope has one end tied above, tugging at the lower end will draw down the upper end as well. The upper extremity of a Jew's soul is likewise bound to its source in the blessed Ein Sof, while at its lower extremity it is enclosed in the body. When the lower extremity of the soul is dragged into spiritual exile through wrongful action, speech, or thought, this has a corresponding effect upon the upper reaches of the soul, which are bound above.
By the way,
Yeah.
in Derech Hashem, the Ramchal says that humans are the only ones that usually it comes top down. So like the kochot hanivdalim, the upper end controls the lower end. So if we think of animals and other things, when you think about humans, that happens as well. But then also what we do here affects or moves the upper ends as well to an extent. So, and then it comes back down.
Mhm.
So it's very interesting. But
Yeah,
I believe
so there within, so human beings have a capacity of it's aruta dilatata, right? Of an awakening from a below, which causes an awakening from above.
Mhm.
And I mean, ultimately, we really believe that this is a spiritual power of Israel specifically, right? That's why we say Israel is otiot yesh li rosh, my head, right? And we believe that Israel is, in a very real sense, a leader, mamlechet kohanim, a nation of priests in the world. And that's part of the reason why, when it comes to Jewish theology, we believe that ultimately all the evil that happens in the world does, in fact, depend on Israel specifically doing teshuvah, being repentant. Okay,
Big responsibility.
yeah, big responsibility. Uchmashal hamoshech bechevel, like the illustration of someone who pulls on a rope. V'hu sod galut hashchina, and this is the mystery of the exile of the Shekhinah, of God's presence. V'azen emar, and v'yashuv el Hashem v'yerhamehu, and this is why it is written, let him return to God and have mercy upon him. Isaiah 55:7, right? Le'orer rahamim rabim al shem havaya hashochen itanu, to awaken the great mercy of God on the divine name that dwells within us. K'dichtiv hashochen itam betoch tum'aotam, like it says, who dwells among them in their midst, in their uncleanliness.
Mhm.
Leviticus 16:16. V'zehu sha'amar katuv v'yishak Yaakov l'Rachel v'yisa et kolo v'yevk. And this is the meaning, obviously not the literal meaning, of Jacob kissed Rachel and lifted up his voice and wept. Ki Rachel hi Knesset Israel, Mekor Kol Haneshamot, because Rachel refers to the gathering of Israel, right, which is the fount of all the souls of Israel. V'Yaakov v'midato ha'elyona, and Jacob in his supernal attribute, right? Shehi midat harahamim sheba'atzilut, which is mercy as it exists in the worlds of emanation. Hu ha'me'orer rahamim rabim aleha. He is the one who brings forth the great compassion upon into Knesset Israel. V'yisa et kolo lamala limkor harahamim ha'elyona. Right, so he raised up his voice above to the source of all of the higher mercies, hanikra av harahamim umakoram, right, which is referred to as the father of mercies and their source. Vayevk, and he cried, le'orer u'lahamshich misham rahamim rabim al kol hanashamot ve'al mekor Knesset Israel, right? And he started crying. So as opposed to raising up his voice, now he's drawing down tears, right? And so you have this awakening from below, right, which arouses an awakening from above of Gishmei Rachamim, right?
Say that again. What you said, instead of?
Instead of, well, I mean, first you have the awakening from below,
Yeah.
right? Of raising up his voice,
Mm-hmm.
which then arouses the Gishmei Rachamim, the raining down of mercy
Mm-hmm.
on from above to below.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Lahalotan migalutan, to bring them forth from their exile. V'lehadan biyechud ha'elyon or ein sof baruch hu, and unite them in the higher unity of the um, of the infinite light, blessed be He. Bebechinat neshikin, at the level of kisses. Shehi itdavkut rucha berucha, which is the attachment spirit to spirit. Kamo shekatuv yeshakeni min pihu, like it says in the Song of Songs, let him kiss me with the kisses of his mouth. Dahainu, hitkashrut dibur ha'adam bedibur Hashem zo halacha v'chen machshava v'machshava. That is the connection of a man with the words of God, which is God's commandments on how we should act in the world, right? And similarly, his thoughts with God's thoughts, right, which is the Torah itself. Umaseh b'maseh, and his actions with the actions as God would have them be. Shahu maaseh hamitzvot, which is the observance of the commandments, ubifrat maaseh hatzdaka v'chesed. And specifically, when we talk about charity and kindness, the chesed ro'a yamina, that chesed, kindness, is the right arm, v'hu bechinat chibuk mamesh. So that is actually an embrace, right? An actual embrace. We say the right hand embraces, like this verse, right? It's from Shir HaShirim, Song of Songs 2:6. Kamo shekatuv v'yemino tchapkeni, right? His right hand embraces me, right? Ve'esek haTorah bedibur u'machshevet ha'iyun hen bechinat neshikin mamish. And so when a person is learning Torah with his mouth, it's really like kisses, right? His mouth is in a sense uniting with God's mouth, right? Vehine al yedeze yachol lavo lebechinat ahava rabba behitgalut libo, right? Therefore, great love can be made revealed in his heart. Kidichtiv leYaakov asher pada et Avraham, like it says of Jacob who redeemed Abraham, right? So this verse implies that Abraham is redeemed through Jacob. Kamo shenikra b'makom acher, as is explained in a different place. And that's actually the question the person asked is, well, how exactly are we saying here Abraham was redeemed? And Rabbi Friedman's answer is, every Jew inherits that love of Abraham, but at times it can be locked in by the hatred. Yaakov, the modality of compassion, overcomes that hatred and unlocks the love from its prison.
Modality of compassion overcomes that hatred.
Yeah.
Yeah. Interesting. So
specifically, it is through compassion that we awaken the chesed of above to be realized in the world below.
It's interesting that it says that it's because of hate, though, that it's locked. Because is it only because of hate?
I mean, we talk very much about how the second temple, was destroyed only because of sinat chinam,
Mm-hmm.
right? So there is definitely an aspect in which Hasidism specifically um, has tried to. I mean, some people would complain too much. I mean, not to dwell on the horrible events today, in yesterday, and for the past 6 months, really, too much. But um, the Rebbe's teachings were about ma'at or doche harbe choshech. A
Mm-hmm.
little bit of light pushes off much darkness.
Yeah.
And the Rebbe often said, you can't fight darkness with darkness. There are people who say you fight fire with fire. You can't fight fire with fire. You can fight darkness with light. And that, our job as Hasidim, is in fact to be lamplighters, right? To give light into the world, and for to allow that small amount of light to awaken, to push off the darkness. And that is in some ways a less direct way of combating darkness,
Mm-hmm.
but um, that is the way of Hasidism.
And what would be? You said that it's sometimes criticized for doing it too much. So what's the too much?
Okay, so maybe in a less compassionate Jewish community, the fact that you have a bunch of people who are unwell and don't have much to do in their lives, and um, may say things which generally we find stupid or
Mm-hmm.
even shameful, or even to be denigrating to the Rebbe and Chabad. Those people would easily, it would, a lot of communities would be like, get you out of my synagogue. I don't want to have you in my synagogue. Call the police a long time ago and kick them out. But the fact is that it's been, I don't remember how many years ago it was, when Rabbi Krinsky, the chairman of Agudat Hasidat Chabad, went downstairs,
Mm-hmm.
and he was physically ejected from the synagogue.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the fact is, if there's one person in the entire world who could call the city of New York and have the policeman, or even if he were to really call upon all the Hasidei Chabad to come down to 770 and physically eject a bunch of young men who, at best, you could call them grief stricken, if not delusional,
Mm-hmm.
right? They want to. So you have a group of young men who wants to pray at 770, and they want to spend their nights and days uh, dancing in circles, yelling "Yehi Adonenu Moreinu V'Rabbeinu," etc., etc., etc. Right? And Rabbi Krinsky is running a worldwide organization that is putting on, uh, menorah lightings in Washington,
Mm-hmm.
D.C., and the largest Passover Seder in the world in Nepal, right? And he wants to go downstairs and pray in the synagogue where he prayed with the Rebbe. And these homeless, some on drugs, clearly not in their right mind, teenagers kick him out. So maybe, I mean, there's a
Mm-hmm.
part of me that says, Rabbi Krinsky, you're the chairman of Agudat Hasidei Chabad. and the Rebbe left you as the chairman of Agudat Hasidei Chabad. So call the police, kick these nebachs out of here, and and at the very least, when you go say your prayers, you should be able to go pray downstairs. But Rabbi Krinsky doesn't go pray downstairs. He goes prays in the Rebbe's office, which he has the keys to.
Mm-hmm.
And so downstairs, there's a bunch of nebachs. And those nebachs were left alone long enough that they built a whole tunnel, Hashem Yerachem, underneath 770.
It's eerie, the similarities of you could
The
be talking
spiritual
about
similarities. I mean, like last night, I don't know if you read my Twitter thread.
I did.
It's pretty long.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, even in Chabad, people talk about the some people more romantically than others talk about upstairs 770 and downstairs 770.
Yeah.
Right? Upstairs 770 is where the leaders and the thinkers and the people who actually rule, like that's where the Chabad of Chabad is. And downstairs is where the passion and the people singing Yehi and who live in Crown Heights and are constantly yelling about the Rebbe being Mashiach and dancing and whatever are.
Mm-hmm.
And what can I say?
Yeah. Yaakov is hard because it's I mean, it says compassion, but if I take it as emet, it's both of those, right? It's compassion and severity. It's
right. And this is, I mean, like, I haven't just been screaming at the sky and Twitter. I've also been screaming at Chabad rabbis for the past almost 24 hours now.
Yeah, it's interesting. I haven't heard any. It's very well hidden in some respects.
Yeah. So Chabad.org didn't put out a official statement. Lubavitch.org did. And who goes to Lubavitch.org?
Not me.
Yeah.
Yeah,
who even knows Lubavitch.org exists?
Yeah.
Tatazisa. What are we gonna do, Ben?
I don't know. I mean,
Mashiach has to come.
It does. Yeah.
Weiter. It's all you.
Okay, let's do it.
So the chapter also started. There's an open path. There's yet another open path.
I see. Give me just a second. Sorry, I have trouble with my heating a little bit, so I just need to figure out something for a second. Okay.
V'yesh
דרך ישר לפני איש שווה לכל נפש וקרוב הדבר מאוד מאוד. There is yet another straight way, equally applicable, suitable to every man, and this matter is very, very close. לעורר ולהאיר אור האהבה התקועה ומסותרת בליבו. To arouse and kindle the light of the love that is implanted and concealed in his heart. להיות מאירה בתוקף אורה כאש בוערה בהתגלות ליבו ומוחו. That it may shine forth with its intense light like a flaming fire in the consciousness of the heart and mind. למסור נפשו להשם וגופו ומאודו. Ultimately enabling the person to surrender his soul to God together with his body and material possessions. בכל לב ובכל נפש ומאוד. with all his heart and with all his soul and with all his might.
Right. So this is talking about Deuteronomy 6:5, right?
Right, the Shema.
Yeah.
מיומקה דליבה באמת לאמיתו. From the depth of the heart in absolute truth. ובפרט, בשעת קריאת שמע וברכותיה, כמו שהתבהר. And especially at the most propitious time, which is at the time of the recital of the Shema and its blessing, as will be explained later. Vehu, and this technique for revealing the love is כאשר ישים על ליבו מה שאמר הכתוב כמים הפנים לפנים, כן לב האדם אל האדם. To take to heart the meaning of the verse, as water mirrors the face to the face, so does the heart of man to man. Interesting. פירוש, כמו שקידמות וצורת הפנים שאדם מראה במים, כן נראה לו שם במים אותה צורה עצמה. This means that as in the case of likeness and features of the face which a man presents to the water, the identical face is reflected back to him from the water.
So ultimately, I mean, this is something he talks about a lot.
Yeah.
There is this idea that as you turn towards God, God turns towards you. As you turn towards another man, that person turns towards you. That people reflect what you send on to them, they reflect back at you.
Yeah. That kind of reminds me a little bit about, you're talking about this at the book club about coming through from like the Kabbalah of forgiveness. He talks about how you should treat, talking about in Kabbalah of forgiveness, and it kind of reminded me of the game theory of like tit for tat with forgiveness, meaning that there is some kind of tit for tat, like a mitzvah goreret mitzvah, avera goreret avera, I think is the corollary.
Mm-hmm.
So there is that sense of tit for tat, and Jacob is also at the sense of you always want to bias that towards chesed, towards forgiveness, towards compassion. So tit for tat with forgiveness, which is supposed to be the best approach in game theory. So it's interesting, and I guess this just reminds me of that.
Really, tit for tat is the best approach in
with forgiveness, I think.
Uh-huh.
I don't know if this is the latest model, but I remember hearing that was.
I'm gonna have to look that up.
Very
eventually. Good.
Okay. Pirush. I think we said that's Pirush already. Do you want to go down?
Mm-hmm. Oh.
ככה ממש, לב האדם הנאמן באהבתו לאיש אחר, so indeed is also the heart of a man who is loyal in his affection for another person. הרי האהבה זו מעוררת אהבה בלב חברו אליו גם כן, להיות אוהבים נאמנים זה לזה. For this love, which he has for the other person, awakens a loving response for him in the heart of his friend, also so that they can come to love each other loyally. בפרט כשרואה אהבת חברו אליו, especially when he sees his friend's love for him freely revealed. והנה זהו טבע הנהוג במידת כל אדם, אף אם שניהם שווים במעלה. Such is the common nature in the character of every man, even when they are equal in status. ועל אחת כמה וכמה, אם מלך גדול ורב מראה אהבתו הגדולה והעצומה לאיש, הדיוט ונבזה ושפל אנשים ומנוול המוטל בהשפעה, how much more so is this the case if a great and mighty king, who rules over many lands, displays his great and intense love for a commoner who is despised and lowly among men, a disgraceful creature cast on a dunghill. ויורד אליו ממקום כבודו עם כל שריו יחדיו, yet he, the king, comes down to him from the place of his glory together with all his retinue. ומקימו ומרימו מהשפתו ומכניסו להיכלו היכל המלך. חדר לפנים מחדר, מקום שאין כל עבד ושר נכנס לשם. And this king raises him and exalts him from his dunghill and brings him into his palace, the royal palace, and puts him in the innermost chamber, a place such as no servant nor lord ever enters. A very, very beautiful image. ומתייחד עמו שם בייחוד וקירוב אמיתי וחיבוק ונישוק והתדבקות ברוחה בכל לב ונפש. And there the king shares with him the closest companionship with mutual embraces and kisses and attachment of a spirit to spirit with their whole heart and soul. על אחת כמה וכמה, או על אחת כמה וכמה, שתתעורר ממילא אהבה כפולה מכופלת, בלב האדיוט ושפל אנשים הזה אל נפש המלך, בהתקשרות הנפש ממש מלב ונפש בעומקה דליבה לאין קץ. How much more so will there be aroused of itself a doubled and redoubled love in the heart of this most common and humble individual for the person of the king, with the true attachment of spirit from heart and soul, from the intimate depths of his heart.
Infinite depth.
From the infinite depth of his heart. So he was saying, so obviously we as people on the same status, we show compassion and we show love to each other. When somebody shows love to us, we show love to them. But then if somebody higher than us and as finite or infinite as we can capture that shows love to us, how much more so would we owe or want to show love to him? ואף אם ליבו כלב האבן, הימס והיה למים, ותשתפך נפשו כמים, בקלות הנפש ממש לאהבת המלך. Even if his heart be like a heart of stone, this person's heart, a heart of stone, and not easily roused to tender feelings of love for another, in such a situation, it will surely melt and become like water, and his soul will pour itself out like water with soulful longing for the love of the king. והנה ככל הדברים האלו וככל החיזיון הזה, וגדול יתר מאוד בכפלי כפליים, לאין קץ עשה לנו אלוהינו, כי גדולתו אין חקר. In a manner corresponding in every detail to the said figure and image, but to a much greater degree, doubled and redoubled infinitely more, as our God dealt with us, for his greatness is beyond comprehension.
Yeah.
ויהו ממלא כל עלמין, ויהו ממלא כל עלמין וסובב כל עלמין. And he pervades all worlds and encompasses all worlds. ונודע מזוהר הקדוש והארי, זיכרונו לברכה, ריבוי היכלות והעולמות עד אין מספר, ובכל עולם והיכל ריבוי רבבות, מלאכים לאין קץ ותכלית. And from the Holy Zohar and also from our master, Rabbi Yitzchak Loria of blessed memory, it is known of the multitude of Echalut, these being the specific levels within each spiritual world, and worlds which are infinite, and of the myriads of angels found in each world, and Echal, and countless and without end. כמו שכתוב בגמרא, כתיב, היש מספר לגדודיו, וכתיב 1,000 אלפין ישמשוניה, וריבו ריבבן קדמוי וכו'. So does the Gemara note, it is written Is there any number in his regiments of angels? Yet it is also written, 1,000 thousands minister unto him, and 10,000 times 10,000 stand before him. ומשני אלף אלפים וכולי, מספר גדוד אחד, אבל לגדודיו אין מספר. And to this the Gemara answers, 1,000 thousands is the quote of one regiment, but his regiments are innumerable. וכולם כמי כלה ממש חשיבי, ובטלים במציאות ממש, כביטול דיבור אחד ממש לגבי מהות הנפש המדברת ועצמותה, בעוד שהיה דיבורה עדיין במחשבתה או ברצון וחמדת הלב כנזכר לעיל באריכות. Yet before him all of them are accounted as nothing at all and are nullified in their very existence, such as one word is truly nullified in relation to the essence and being of the articulate soul, the soul possessing the power of speech, while the speech of the soul was still present in the soul's faculty of thought or in the will and desire of the heart, as has been explained above at length.
Yeah. I mean, so first he started the previous chapter, he was talking in terms of being me'orer rachamim, right?
Mm-hmm.
And this, he seems to be doing, what you were talking about there with regard to the yira, right?
Yeah.
Recognizing God's greatness and how God is above all of these things and everything, and yeah.
וכולם שואלים, יהיה מקום כבודו, ועונים מלא כל הארץ כבודו.
Right, so this is from the Kedusha, right? We talk about the angels, Shoalim Zeh Mizeh, Ayeh Mekom Kavodo La'arichto, right? And then the V'kara Zel Zeh V'amar, Kadosh, 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 Hashem Tzavakot, Maleh Kol Haaretz Kavodo, right? So all of these holy things, right? They come together to speak of the greatness of God.
Mm-hmm. And they ask, where is the place of his glory? Mm-hmm. And they answer, the whole physical earth is full of his glory.
Yeah.
That is his people, Israel.
So with the angels, right, the they includes, when we say Kedusha, right, we are in fact embodying that in the world, right? Yeah.
Giving speech to them. כי הניח הקדוש ברוך הוא את העליונים והתחתונים. For the Holy One, blessed be he, forsook the higher and lower creatures. ולא בחר בכולם כי אם בישראל עמו והוציאה ממצרים, ערות הארץ, מקום... ערוות הארץ. That makes sense? ערוות הארץ, מקום הזוהמה והטומאה. Choosing none of them but Israel, his people, whom he brought out of Egypt, the obscenity of the earth, the place of filth and impurity.
Yeah.
לא על ידי מלאך ולא על ידי חולי, אלא הקדוש ברוך הוא בכבודו ובעצמו ירד לשם.
Yeah, this is from the Haggadah, right? God himself.
כמו שכתוב, וירד להצילו וכולי. Not through an angel did he do this, nor through a messenger, but the Holy One, blessed be he himself in his glory descended there, as it is written, and I have descended to save him from the hand of the Egyptians. כדי לקרבם אליו בקירוב וייחוד אמיתי בהתקשרות הנפש ממש. in order to bring them near to him in true closeness and unity with a real attachment of soul. בבחינת נשיקין פה לפה, לדבר דבר השם זו הלכה. On the level of kisses of mouth to mouth, so that the Jew's mouth be united with the mouth and speech of God by uttering the word of God, namely the הלכה. והתדבקות רוחה ברוחה היא השגת התורה וידיעת רצונו וחוכמתו. And the fusion of spirit of man with spirit of God, namely the comprehension of the Torah and the knowledge of his will and wisdom, דכולה חד ממש, which are truly one, וגם בבחינת חיבוק, and also with a form of embrace, הוא קיום המצוות מעשיות ברמ"ח איברים, namely the embrace is the fulfillment of the positive precepts with the 248 organs. דרמ"ח פיקודין and רמ"ח איברין דמלכה כנזכר לעיל. For the 248 ordinances are the 248 organs of the king, as mentioned earlier. ודרך כלל, נחלקין לשלוש בחינות, ימין ושמאל ואמצע, שהם חסד, דין ורחמים. Interesting. In a general manner, these 248 positive mitzvot are divided into three categories: right, left, and center. Namely, chesed, being kindness, din, being stern justice, and rachamim, being mercy. Train, droin, vegufa, v'chulei. The two arms and the body. So interesting. So rachamim is considered to be
the center.
The center. So it's something. So it's between din and chesed.
Teveret.
I need to think about that. Because in my mind, chesed, rachamim, it's all the same.
Chesed is not rachamim.
Mm-hmm.
Chesed is right. When you give, when you give to something which is unworthy, right? And din is when you give to something which is worthy. But what is rahamim? Rahamim is when you give the capacity to be worthy to something that is unworthy.
Interesting. Yeah, so I think from getting this, I think what I'm getting here is that Rachamim is not justice, and Rachamim is not chesed.
Correct.
Just like Emet is not justice, and Emet is not chesed.
But like it says in Petichat Eliyahu, in the Tikkun Zohar, Kol de'afrish chad mechavre chas v'shalom ke'ilu afrish bach. Right? Anyone who causes a separation of one of the attributes of God from any other attribute of God, it's as if God have mercy on us. God forbid such thing could happen. He has created a separation within God.
Meaning that there is no truth without justice.
There is no, when we talk about the Sfirot, right? So you can talk about Echad mi yodea, Shnayim mi yodea, Shalosh mi yodea. You can talk about God's attributes as they interact, 2 with each other, 3 with each other, 4 with each other. You can talk about 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, right? And we do often talk about 10, right? But the fact is that there's the one and the many, there's the one and the infinite, right? And so whenever we talk about any particular one aspect, in that it is finite and expressible, right? Then leit machshava tfisa bach klal, right? A thought cannot actually capture God at all. But these things act as, in a way, tefisa, act as a handle by which we can have a glimpse of God, a revelation of God.
Right. Yeah. Just looking at the Chazi's comments here. But this one is just interesting to me because I'm going through brachot right now. The time of transition tension from night to day. The first Gemara discussed this tension.
Yeah, so I mean, he said this back when we were discussing what's going on in Chabad, but yeah, I mean, don't know what to tell you. We're in a time of darkness. He's talking specifically about my tweet. I think after we finish here, I'm gonna start another stream and just have an open just chatting so people can come on and talk, because Rahmana Latzlan, I saw the types of things that are being broadcast all over to huge audiences, the stupidity that's being, the unimaginable stupidity that's being said.
Yeah.
The people are bringing all the blood libels and everything. It's like, no. Yeah. And the craziness is the religious world thinks they can ignore it and it'll go away, and that's just making things worse. They actually ended up deleting the videos, the Twitter, the tweets that had all the videos has now been taken down, and which is causing further speculation and stupidity.
Right, as to what happened, what
are they covering up? What's the cover up?
Yeah.
Right, this is becoming another pizza gate. Stupidity.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Hopefully, you can shed a little bit of light, a little bit of emet.
I guess. Let's hope. So
this is the meaning of the text of the various blessing pronounced before one fulfills a mitzvah. Blessed be he who has betrothed us by his commandments.
So, I mean, basically, the Hebrew word asher kiddushanu means sanctified us. Right. But when a man marries his wife, he says, "Hare at mekudeshet li," right? He says, "Kedat Moshe v'Yisrael, you are betrothed to me, you are sanctified unto me." And similarly, we say, "Asher kiddushanu b'mitzotav," that he sanctified us, that he betrothed us, that he, in essence, married us with his commandments.
Yeah. כאדם המקדש אישה להיות מיוחדת עמו בייחוד גמור, כמו שכתוב, ודבק באשתו והיו לבשר אחד. So, like he said, like a man who betroths a wife so that she be united with him in a perfect bond, as it is written, and he shall cleave to his wife, and they shall be one flesh. ככה ממש, ויתר, ויתר על כן, לאין קץ, and I'm confusing the Yiddish now.
Yeah, you are.
לאין קץ, הוא ייחוד נפש האלוהית העוסקת בתורה, הוא מצוות ונפש החיונית ולבושיהן, הנזכרים לעיל באור אין סוף ברוך הוא. Exactly similar to the unity achieved through betrothal, and even infinitely surpassing it, is the union of the divine soul that is engaged in Torah and the commandments, and of the vivifying soul and their garments referred to above, speech, action, thought. All of them can be becoming united with the light of the blessed Ein Sof. ולכן המשיל שלמה עליו השלום בשיר השירים ייחוד זה לייחוד חתן וכלה. Therefore did Solomon, peace unto him, in the Song of Song, compare this union with the union of bridegroom and bride. בדביקה, חשיקה וחפיצה בחיבוק ונישוק, with attachment, with longing and desire, with embrace and kissing. וזהו שאומרים, אשר קידשנו במצוותיו. This is also the meaning of who has sanctified us by his commandments. שהעלינו למידת קודש העליון ברוך הוא, שהיא קדושתו של הקדוש ברוך הוא בכבודו ובעצמו. That he has elevated us to the heights of the supreme holiness, which is the holiness of the Holy One, blessed be him himself. וקדושה היא לשון הבדלה. מה שהקדוש ברוך הוא מובדל מהעולמות. Kedusha, holiness, is a term indicating separateness, and that the Holy One, blessed be He, is apart from the world, from the worlds. והיא בחינת סובב כל עולמין, מה שאינו יכול להתלבש בהן. This being the quality of encompassing all worlds, being unable to clothe himself within them.
Yeah, so what he's saying is you have God who is holy and beyond all the worlds, right? So in a very real sense, he cannot be involved in the worlds. So what does a mitzvah allow us to do? Asher kiddushanu b'mitzvotav. It allows us to, in essence, rise above the world to become unified with God in doing his will, despite the fact that we are of the world.
Mm-hmm. Right. Granted an ability.
Yeah.
כי על ייחוד הנפש ואית כללותה באור אין סוף ברוך הוא, הרי היא במעלת ומדרגת קדושת אין סוף ברוך הוא ממש. For through the union of the soul with and its absorption into the light of the Ein Sof, it attains the quality and the degree of holiness of the blessed Ein Sof himself. מאחר שמתייחדת ומתכללת בו, יתברך והיו לאחדים ממש, since it unites itself with him and is integrated into him and they become truly one. וזהו שכתוב, והייתם לי קדושים, כי קדוש אני השם, ואבדיל אתכם מן העמים להיות לי. This is the meaning of the verse. And you shall be holy unto me, for I, the Lord, am holy. And I have separated you from other peoples, that you should be mine. ואומר, ועשיתם את כל מצוותיי, והייתם קדושים לאלוהיכם, אני השם אלוהיכם וכו'. Another verse states, you shall fulfill all my commandments and be holy unto your God. I am the Lord your God. פירוש, כי על ידי קיום המצוות הריני אלוקה שלכם. The meaning is that through the fulfillment of the commandments, I become your God. כמו אלוהי אברהם, אלוהי יצחק וכו'. As God is called the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, and so on. שנקרא, כן מפני האבות שהיו בחינת מרכבה לא יתברך. Called thus because the patriarchs were on the level of a vehicle chariot unto him. ובטלים ונכללים באורו, and they were nullified and absorbed in his light. וככה הוא בכל נפש מישראל בשעת עסק התורה והמצוות. So it is with the soul of every Jew at the time he is occupied with Torah and the commandments. ולכן חייבו רבותינו זיכרונם לברכה לקום ולעמוד מפני כל עוסק במצווה, אף אם הוא בור ועם הארץ. Therefore, the sages of blessed memory made it obligatory to rise and remain standing in the presence of anyone who is engaged in fulfilling a commandment, even if the latter is uncultured and illiterate. Interesting. Somebody just told me that the reason that we need to stand during the kiddush on Shabbat, but that has to do with the fact that we are because in a Jewish court, you need to, when there are witnesses, they need to stand, and we are. I can't remember exactly, but we are as witnesses, I guess, the creation of the world on Shabbat. So that's why you stand while you do kiddush.
Okay.
That's what I heard.
Okay, that's a beautiful explanation.
Yeah, but it reminded me of here saying that you made it obligatory to raise and remain standing in the presence of anybody fulfilling a commandment.
I mean, I don't know that this is halachically. I've never seen.
Yeah, that's I don't know.
Yeah,
I don't see that.
yeah. I mean, apparently, if somebody is bringing a fruit, their first fruits to the Beit HaMikdash, okay.
That's what they used to do. Yeah.
Yeah.
והיינו מפני השם השוכן ומתלבש בנפשו בשעה זו. This is because God dwells and clothes himself in this man's soul at such time. רק שאין נפשו מרוגשת. It is only that his soul is unconscious of this sanctity that resides within him at the time of his performance. מפני מסך החומר הגופני, שלא נזדכך ומחשיך עיני הנפש מראות מראות אלוהים. מראות אלוהים. Because of the barrier of the bodily grossness that has not been refined and which dims the eyes of the soul, preventing it from seeing divine visions. כמו האבות וכיוצא בהן שראו עולמם מחייהם. As experienced by the patriarchs and others of their stature who saw their world, the spiritual world to come during their lifetime. וזהו שאמר, העטף ברוח הקודש, בעוד כל כנסת ישראל שבגולה. בעד כל כנסת ישראל שבגולה. This is also the meaning of what Asaph said, under divine inspiration on behalf of the whole community of Israel, who are later to be in exile. Who is Asaph?
Somebody in the Bible. Oh wow, that's a huge note.
But with the name Asaph, what does it say about that? It's also
Asaph, a Levite singer who lived through. Oh, Mizmor LaAsaph.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah, so there are in Tehillim, there are Mizmorim which start Mizmor LaAsaph.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, like he said, ואני באר ולא אדע, בהמות הייתי עמך, ואני עמך, right?
ואני באר ולא אדע, בהמות הייתי עמך, ואני תמיד עמך.
Okay. So, and
the reason that imcha becomes imach is because it is at the end of a phrase, and the cantillation marks change the pronunciation.
Okay, yeah, that I asked somebody about that, so it's interesting because I always get it confused. So
I mean, there are interpretations for why is it that in this particular case imcha becomes imach. Because of the cancellations, you can darshan that in a way, but the pshat, the simple understanding is that at the end of a sentence, imach becomes an imcha becomes imach.
Yeah. So this means the translation is, and I am foolish and know not. I was as a beast before you. Yet I am continually with you. כלומר, שאף על פי שאני כבהמה בהיותי עמך. This means that even though I am as a beast when I am with you, ולא אדע ולא הרגיש בנפשי ייחוד זה. My soul being unaware of and insensitive to this union while I'm performing the mitzvah, שתיפול עליה אימתה ופחד תחילה, ואחר כך אהבה רבה בתענוגים או כרשפי אש, which should bring down upon it fear and awe first, followed by a great and pleasurable love that experiences delight, or a love like fiery flames. כמידת הצדיקים שנזדכך חומרם, like the quality of the tzaddikim, whose corporeality has been refined. וכנודע שדעת הוא לשון הרגשה בנפש, והוא כולל חסד וגבורה. For as is known, the term dat connotes a sensitivity of the soul, and this is comprised of chesed and gvura. אף על פי כן, אני תמיד עמך, כי אין החומר מונע ייחוד הנפש באור אינסוף, ברוך הוא הממלא כל עלמין. Nevertheless, I am continually with you, for the corporeality of the body does not prevent the union of the soul with the light of the blessed and Sof, who fills all worlds. וכמו שכתוב, גם חושך לא יחשיך ממך.
Mimeka. Yeah. So, I mean, what he's saying here is even someone who's not at the level of Da'at Hashem, right? To know God and to truly love God and feel that, even such a person is still with God, right? And on a much lower level.
Yeah, I think this might be related to actually what I just read in the Batile Gani. Because it talked about the, I thought that it talked about the Sovev Kol Almin. But here it mentions.
Well, I mean, this is what he's talking about. He's saying that Sovev Kol Almin, right? God in his nature, which is beyond us, Kidshanu b'mitzvotav, right? He has sanctified us. He has moved us beyond the world in his commandments, because at the moment in that you are doing a commandment of God, you are fulfilling his will. In a sense, God is with you as, mouth to mouth, right? You are unified with God truly in that he is being revealed in the world through you by enacting his will.
But in some way, but in a different way than. But there's a difference between Memale Kol Almin and
right. This is not Milui. That's what he's saying. He's saying Asher Kiddushana b'mitzvotav means that Sovev Kol Almin. Right. It's Bechinat Memale is everywhere. Right. It's not just when you do a mitzvah. Even when you do an avera, Memale is Memale Kol Haaretz Male Kol Haaretz Kovodo. Right, that is Shechina begalut, right? The God's presence is in exile when we sin, but when we are doing God's will, it is Sovev Kol Almin that is revealed in the world, at least through His will being done in the world, and that. We have a part in that is Asher Kiddushana b'mitzvotav, that he has sanctified us. It's like a marriage of Sovev Kol Almin with our lowly selves, which is in this world.
Ubeze, accordingly, since as above, every Jew who performs a mitzvah is granted the unity and sanctity of supreme holiness, even when he does not perceive it as does a tzaddik. Yuvan chomer onesh isur melacha b'shabbatot v'chametz b'pesach ashave lekol nefesh. One will be able to understand the severity of the punishment for transgressing the prohibition of work on Shabbat, or that of leavened bread on Passover, which equally applies to all. לפי שאף בנפש בור ועם הארץ גמור, מאיר אור קדושת שבת ויום טוב, ונידון בנפשו בכרת וסקילה על חילול קדושה זו. For even the soul of an uncultured and completely illiterate person shines the light of sanctity of Shabbat or festival, Hence, he faces capital punishment by karet for eating leavened bread on Passover and stoning for doing a prohibited form of labor on Shabbat for the profanation of this sanctity. וגם, מה שהוא חמץ או טלטול מוקצה, פוגם בקדושה של נפשו כמו בקדושת נפש הצדיק. Similarly, the transgression involving the slightest amount of leaven on Passover or the moving of muktzeh on Shabbat.
And the reason he's mentioning muktzeh on Shabbat is because it's midevrei sofrim. It's a rabbinic injunction. Yet even then, right, since you are violating a rabbinic injunction, right, you're chayav benafsho,
right,
in a sense,
because you blemish the sanctity,
yeah,
of the soul. So again, I mean, to the extent as your potential increases, so does your responsibility, and that means that,
right. Okay, so I have to be clear here. It doesn't mean that if chas v'shalom you're the type of person who has never went to synagogue before, and suddenly now you're going to synagogue on Shabbat, and chas v'shalom you are driving with your car there. Obviously, that's not saying that suddenly you get thrown into outer darkness with the type of person who drives on Shabbat to God knows where and worse.
right?
Yes.
Yeah. I mean,
but I mean, ultimately, the goal is that all of Israel will, in fact, keep Shabbat kehilchata eventually, hopefully. But okay, so that's not where some of us are at yet.
Right. Yeah, and we walk through those things as well. In terms of,
and that's why you need a posek, and that's why you need wisdom, and you need to know who you are and where you're holding and what your thing is, level is, right? Yeah.
Yep.
You already read Ki Torah Achat Lekulanu?
You just read it. For we all have one Torah.
Correct.
ומה שכתוב בהמות לשון רבים, and for the use of the plural form beasts, לרמז כי לפניו יתברך גם בחינת דעת העליון הכולל חסד וגבורה, נדמה כבהמות ועשייה גופנית לגבי אור אינסוף. This use of the plural intimates that before him even Da'at Elyon, supernal knowledge, which comprises Chesed and Gvura, is like beasts in a physical creation.
So he's making a minor diuk. He's being very specific on the verse that we read. It was Vani Eda. Was it?
I think it was before.
Where was the verse? Velo eda here. Va'ani ba'ar velo eda behemot hayiti imach va'ani tamid imach. Right? It says, I am a fool. I don't understand. I was beasts. Right? He doesn't say behema hayiti imach. It says behemot hayiti imach. Right?
Which grammatically is weird because he's using singular with plural.
Right. And so he says, this is to explain that even if I did understand, Da'at Elyon ultimately is still at the level of Behemot when compared to God himself.
Yeah. כמו שכתוב, כולם בחוכמה עשית. As it is written, you made them all with wisdom.
Right. And he explained before, right, that kulam b'chokhma asita tells us that chokhma, when it comes to God himself, right, chokhma is like the level of asiyah. Even chokhma v'atzilut is like the level of asiyah.
Even chokhma in atzilut is at the level of asiyah.
It is like the level of asiyah because despite the fact that it is the highest sphera and the highest of the worlds, when it comes to God Himself, kame kala chashiv. Everything is as nothing. So anything that has anything you can name, right, is already so far beyond, so far removed from God.
Yeah.
It's as if it is nothing.
Right. ונקרא בהמה רבה כמו שנתבאר במקום אחר. And this is called בהמה רבה, a great beast, denoting that level of beast which transcends understanding rather than that which lacks comprehension, as is explained elsewhere. והוא שם בית נון.
Shem ban.
Ban.
The 50, there's the 52 there's the 52 letter name of God and the 45 letter name of God and other names of God. But yes.
And this is the name בגימטריה בהמה שלפני האצילות.
Yeah. So, yeah. That's Behema before Atzilut. There you go.
Why didn't he put here כידוע ליודעי חן?
Apparently this is something even more pashut than that.
I guess.
I love when he says Ein li esek benistarot, right? He says I'm not going to talk about Kabbalistic things, but, and then he like wallops you with something out of the Zohar that's like, okay, I didn't understand what you said, and I'm never going to understand what you said, but I'll believe you because you're the Alter Rebbe.
Yes.
Ban is not 52 letters. It is a milui of the Tetragrammaton with gematria, whose gematria is 52. I wouldn't know as well as Fraudwith does, unfortunately.
Fraud knows gematria. That's great.
But as I understand it, there's also when you talk about Shemot Ban, there's also a way of writing God's name with 52 letters. But I may in fact be wrong about this, and Fraud may in fact know more than I do about this, because we live in a time when apparently the JW witnesses teach more about Kabbalah than most Jewish synagogues do. Okay. Yeah. What I think I am going to do is I am going to stop this stream and start a new stream and see if people want to chat about what happened in Chabad, because I have been very, very distracted by the fact that Chabad is trending all over whatchamacallit, with hundreds of thousands of posts, and yeah, okay. And
thank you very much for the shiur.
Thank you very much for the shiur. We will figure out, we're not sure about the timing. We will figure out a time and we'll announce it. And then hopefully we will keep to that time, at least for a little while.
Yeah.
Okay.